Oh, sweet. Alright. Well, it is time for another informational video. This time, we're not going to be looking at pollen. We are going to be looking at something else. We are going to be looking at human osteology. So basically, human bones. Again, this is just what I've learned so far. I've mostly been doing basics. I've been reading the book a little bit, so I'm just going to be doing basic stuff. How about I actually, turn that on so it's recording on? Not the mic. No. Mic doesn't need to record. That's what I have the video for. Okay, so let's see if we can get this started. If this can move. Alright, let's get this started. So, the basic terms that we were kind of started off with, some of them are mentioned on this page right here. So we have the first two terms, superior and inferior. Superior basically means towards the head of, the human body, towards the head end. Inferior means away from the head end. Like, that's basically the simplest way of explaining it. Anterior and posterior were the next terms. Basically, posterior is the back, and anterior is the front. Then we have medial and lateral. I mean, this one seems a little bit more obvious, but medial is like towards the middle, so like, things that happen towards the middle. Like the sternum, for example, is medial to, say, the ribs, which are lateral. So the opposite of medial is lateral. So basically it's like saying my ribs are lateral to my sternum, and the sternum is medial to my ribs. So there's also proximal and distal. So basically, proximal is nearest to like the way, from the way I understand it, is nearest to the main skeleton. So basically, the pelvis, the ribs, and the clavicle and scapula, like that kind of constitutes the main skeleton of the body. Proximal and distal are generally used as terms for like, the limbs. So basically, proximal is closer to the main body of the skeleton, so basically going up this way is proximal, going down this way is distal. So my hands, my phalanges, and my metacarpals are distal, and let's say like my humerus is proximal, so it's closer to the main skeleton of the body. There are a few other terms that are not mentioned on this one. Mostly some obvious ones like external and internal. So like external is like the outer, closer to the surface, so basically skin for the most part. Internal is inner, or further from the surface. So say, for example, the heart is internal to the ribs and the sternum. There's also endocranial and ectocranial. Endocranial is the inner part of the skull, hence the name. So basically, like the brain cavity and the dura mater of the brain, that's all endocranial. Ectocranial is like the outside part of the cranium, including a bunch of the sutures and the different parts of the skull itself, which I'll probably end up discussing in a much later video. Then we also have superficial, which is... oh, hair. That one was bothering me for a little bit. There's superficial, so basically closer to the surface. So, again, I swear, I keep using these exact same ones, but I'm trying to make a point. Is that, like, the ribs are superficial to, say, the heart and the lungs. The ribs are basically closer to the surface of the body, or the skin. Not exactly the same, but similar enough in this case. Deep is the opposite of superficial. It's farther from the surface. So, say the bone of the femur is deep compared to, like, the muscles surrounding it. They're farther away from the surface than the muscles are. The femurs are farther from the surface than the muscles are anyways. And then subcutaneous is just below the skin, so, I mean, they're all... that one I'm not... It's easy, but I'm trying to think of some example. Can't think of it at the moment, so... oh well. So the next one, so these are like terms for the hands and feet, and pretty simple ones. So we have palmar, which refers to the palm side of the hand, basically this entire area. I bring my feet up, but I don't really have the ability to do that right now. I got something blocking my way. Plantar is basically the bottom of the foot, so right here. There is also another term that can refer to both the palmar and the plantar region, and that's called the volar region. So it's basically the hollow part of the hand or the foot. So volar means both of them. Palmar and plantar are basically just like subcategories almost. Dorsal is, you know, kind of like a dorsal fin on a dolphin. It's on the back. It's on the back of the hand. It's on the top of the foot. So that's what that refers to. The teeth are a little bit trickier. There's all kinds of stuff. We haven't actually learned, like, you know, names of teeth yet and whatever. We're just kind of learning directions for the most part. So first we have mesial, which is toward the midline of the dental arch. So basically, I know that I saw it. So as you go further towards the center, so like, you know, where this is, that's basically mesial, toward the midline. Distal is away from the midline, so basically as you're going away from it. There is lingual, which is, you know, the side of the teeth that faces the tongue. So basically, these sides of the teeth are all lingual. And then labial is the outside of the teeth that faces the lips, so this area, basically it's the part of the teeth that the parts of the teeth that show when you smile. I have a horrible smile, but my point. And then, what is it? Buccal? 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 I think it's buccal, my bad. Is referring to the fronts of the teeth near the cheek area. So basically, like the fronts of the teeth back here. That usually refers to the first, to the premolars and then the molars. Whereas for the labial, it usually refers to the incisors and the I know that I've learned that in the past, like the names of some of the teeth, but I'm not remembering them at the moment. So there's also interproximal, so that's basically the area of the tooth that is in contact with another tooth, so this kind of area right here, if you look on the bottom right. There is occlusal, which is facing, I don't know what, okay, I might have worded that a little bit weird. So usually it's the top surface of like the chewing teeth, so mostly it pertains to the molars, but it can also pertain to the premolars as well. And since the incisors and canines don't have that, it doesn't necessarily refer to them. There's also a term apical, so basically it's at or towards the tip of the root of the teeth, of the tooth, wow. So basically blood vessels can enter through the apical opening, so it's so the apical is something we can't see, it's deep in the root of the tooth. And then of course obviously there is incisal, so the biting edge of the incisors, so basically the top of the incisors. Incisal is kind of the same as occlusal. Occlusal refers to the molars and the premolars. Incisal refers to the front teeth, the incisors and the canines. There are also these three terms I'm still trying to understand a little bit, but there is Mesial Distal, which is basically the axis running from the mesial to the distal section, so basically this kind of line, I think, like in general, like no matter which direction you're looking, it's that kind of line. There's a buccolingual, which is the axis running from the buccal to the lingual, so the lingual is here, and that, like, again, it's kind of hard to say. Oh wait, hold on. Oh, I'm sorry, mesial is like this kind of line, the line that goes up and down. The buccolingual is the one running from the buccal to the... Oh. Okay, never mind. Never mind that. Okay, the Mesial Distal it's this center line right here. There's a buccolingual and labiolingual that I still have yet to understand. Again, we haven't necessarily covered this yet. I've just been looking at the book and trying to understand it to the best of my ability, so I'll probably look more into that. So now we got if I can. Maybe. Give me a sec. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. That image was not supposed to turn out that way, but that's okay. So, general motions. So basically there's a flexion, which is, you know, flexing inward. It's pretty obvious. And then there's the extension, which is extending a straightening movement that basically increases the angle between body parts, is like the better kind of explanation. And then the flexion is a bending movement that decreases that angle. So usually this pertains to, like, you know, your elbow and then your knees, but you can do it with other parts of your body too. Like you can kind of, you know, bend forward, and that's considered a flexion, but then you extend back out. Doesn't necessarily work with the neck. That's a different kind of movement altogether. Here, I need to sit up better. Let's see if I can get it. Maybe, I don't know. Okay, there is abduction and adduction. So abduction is basically a movement of a body part away from the sagittal plane. The sagittal plane, like, if it helps to understand, this right here, there's like this suture on the cranium that's the sagittal crest. It's basically the top of the head. So abduction means you're moving a body part away from that. So instead of being straight and in line with the sagittal crest, when you're with an abduction, you move that away. So you basically lift up your arms. But then an adduction is where you move it towards the sagittal plane. Abductions can also include, you know, spreading of the fingers, and adductions can include, like, closing the fingers. Again, that's a bit of a trickier one to understand, I think, but once you get the feel for some of these words and then, you know, have some examples and movements, it becomes easier to understand. So, then there's also circumduction. This one's oh, okay. The only ones that I've really learned about are abduction, adduction, and circumduction. So, circumduction is a combo of abduction and adduction, or flexion and extension, that results in an appendage being moved in a cone-shaped wave. I can't really do that very well at the moment, but if you kind of look at this, like, imagine you're waving to a car, like, behind you, like, you're going slow, and you're basically telling the person behind you that, you know, they can pass. So you basically do that kind of motion, like, yeah, go on ahead. Well, that's basically circumduction. It's a combination of different kinds of bodily movements as they pertain to, you know, flexions, extensions, abductions, and adductions. Okay. Maybe? Okay, and a reposition. Okay, whoops. A rotation is a motion occurring as one body part turns on its axis, so I'm pretty sure that's, like, you know, when your hand does something like this. Again, I don't fully understand all of these terms. I think I understand most of them, though, so this is kind of something a little bit for me as well. And then opposition is motion occurring where body parts are brought together, so like when you bring your fingers together. Or kind of like, you know, kind of like is shown in the image when you put up a 3. There are 2 more, if I can get them. Maybe. Okay, so there are 2 more left, and they are called pronation and supination. Pronation is a rotary motion of the forearms that basically turns palms from anteriorly facing to posteriorly facing. So you have your arms at your sides, and you basically lift your fingers like this and type away. That's basically pronation. Supination is a little bit different. It's a rotary motion of the forearm that turns from anteriorly facing to posteriorly facing. So say, like, you're begging for food. You're like, please, give me food, Mom. I'm really hungry. No. Get it yourself. You're old enough. I actually think that is it. I've learned, like, a few more things here and there, of course, but I think that's the basics for now. At least the basics that I've learned so far. So, I actually think that was a pretty good video. You know, I tried to put as many examples as I could, you know, given the fact that I am sitting down and I do have a kind of a surface blocking me. I think it worked out well in the end. I need to learn to actually stare at the camera more often. I feel like sometimes I forget where it is, but, you know, there is that, so. Alright, I think that was a rather successful. Okay, it did record. Okay. I need to sit up, and yet, watch, I'm gonna end up sinking back down at some point, so. What's the point? Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed the video or found it informational in some way. I bet some of the stuff you might have already known, but maybe some of it was new, so there's that. So, thanks for watching.